Okay, so shalom. Now listen, this is an emergency message, right? And it's called, this message is titled, Our Parents. This message is titled, Our Parents. All right, now, there's a reason why I'm making this message, okay? All right. All right. There's a reason why I'm making this message. Now, listen. If you're in religion, if you're an atheist, you believe in yourself, if you are a parent that's just stubborn, rebellious, right? And you don't believe in the Bible, this message is going to make you angry. So I suggest that none of you watch this message, okay? I'm not going to hold any stops. Now remember, I'm supposed to be somebody with less than 1,000 followers. And many of you claim to care less about me, claim that you don't listen to me. Many people act like they don't know me. And many people get angry about the things that I say. So just remember that you all chose to tune in to this message. Let me repeat that. Every last one of you chose to tune in to this message. Okay? Now, I want to read a story to you all. But first, I want you all to understand something. Now, I want to go to Genesis chapter 18. I want to go to the chapter with a scroll of Genesis, and I want to go to chapter 18. Okay? And I want to start at the beginning. Now, I'm not going to read much of it. Now, you all know, well, you all don't know. So what's happening here? Well, Sodom and Gomorrah is about to be destroyed. Sodom and Gomorrah, Christ is about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay? Now, before he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, remember, he had such a respect, Christ, the Most High, Yahuwah, had such a respect for Abraham that he decided to come down and speak to Abraham. And a lot of people would like to say that he negotiated with Abraham. Yes and no, okay? Christ doesn't negotiate, okay? The Most High doesn't negotiate. He negotiated, but he already knew what he was going to do. Why? Because he knew that there wasn't anybody righteous in Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the reason why when Abraham, as he kept going down, well, if there's 20 righteous people, if there's 30 righteous people, there's 20 righteous people, what if there's 10 righteous people? Christ was just saying, hey, look, listen, if you find 20 righteous people, I'll spare the whole city, all of the cities. If you find 10 righteous people, I'll spare the whole cities. Christ knew that there was nobody righteous in the city. Now, remember, Lot got a pass. Lot wasn't necessarily righteous. Okay, now, Lot wasn't homosexual. He wasn't delving in divination. He wasn't doing the rest of the shit that the rest of those foolish people were doing in the city. He wasn't eating swine and abominations. He wasn't sacrificing to false gods or anything of that nature, right? But he was still in the midst of it. He wasn't set apart from the madness. He was tortured day and night with all the things from his house. He probably heard all of these things through the window, the murders and orgies and all of these horrific things going on outside of his house. Okay, I'm not going to answer that. Now, of all the things outside of his house, right? And he didn't, it grieved him. It had him in horror, right? So even though he wasn't partaking in those things, Lot still, he was a salesman and he was interacting with these people on a daily basis. Now, the point I wanted to make is this. I want to read something to you, okay? Genesis chapter 18. We're going to start at the top. Genesis chapter 18. We're going to start at the top. And Yahuwah, the Most High. Now it says the Lord. Okay? Remember what I told you all about when you see where the Lord. Everywhere you see the Lord, it should say his name. The Lord is not his name. His name is Yahuwah. Okay? His name is Yahuwah. Everywhere you see his name, everywhere you see the Lord, it should say Yahuwah. In the Old Testament, it should say either Yahuwah or in many cases, the Master. Okay? Now, who is Yahuwah? He's master of the heavens and the earth. Genesis chapter 18, verse 1. And Yahuwah appeared to him, who? Abraham, by the oaks of the Mamre, as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes, who? Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. 3 men. M-E-N, meaning these men were black men, just like Abraham, with eyes, nose, mouth, hands, ears, face, legs, and feet. They took pisses and shits. He went and got them some food. They ate the food. They took pisses and shits after they ate the food, and then they went back to heaven. But these 3 men was Christ, or Yahuwah, and 2 of his confidants, most likely Raphael and Gabriel, most likely. Okay? Now, I know one of them was Raphael. Now, he's going to say, when he saw them, so they were standing in front of him. Now, when who saw them? Abraham. When Abraham saw Yah and the 2 angels, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and he bowed, meaning he prostrated himself to the earth, meaning he laid on his face, and said, O Master, O Adonai, O Master, if I have, this is the Old Testament, 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 this is the Old Testament. Yahuwah was standing in front of Abraham in the form of a man. And Abraham said, O Master, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet. And rest yourselves under the tree. Rest yourselves under the tree. I didn't think that Yahuwah needed rest, but he came down in the form of a man, and he told them to rest yourselves under the tree while I bring you food. He says morsel and bread and all of that stuff. Now, what's my point here? When Abraham saw Yah and the 3 angels, They were men, and the angels are, they're all always in the form of a man. To be honest with you, even in heaven, they're in the form of a man. Only they become glorified. They become much more esteemed. The way that they look is much more, it's graduated. It's greatly graduated to a next level. In other words, when Christ esteems himself and he comes down here, when he comes down here in the form of a man, he comes down here in the form of a man, of an ordinary man. Just like we are, feeble, even though some of us are very strong men, but and when he comes down here, if he's anything like us, it's considered feeble. Even the strongest of you Negroes are considered feeble in comparison to being glorified into the Shamayim, into the heavens. So when Christ is up there, his stature is much, 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 much greater than it is when he brings himself down here. So he comes down here as a theophany. Point that I'm making, here's the punchline. Abraham, when he saw them, he already knew who they were. He already knew who Christ was. That's why he ran over to him and he bowed. So even though they were in the form of a man, they still had some type of difference about them. Meaning if they were to walk through the hood right now, they would definitely catch everyone's attention. Let's not get it twisted. If Christ was walking through this hood, or Gabriel, or Raphael, they're not somebody you can walk up to and do what you want to do to them. They will probably beat you to death. Their stature is far greater, regardless of how many of you view yourselves. Christ in man form is still nothing to be played with. He's about 7 feet tall, as thus saith the scriptures, the Apocrypha, but not, he may be taller. Because when he was giving everybody crowns on the mount, well, that's a prophecy. It didn't happen yet. But he stood taller than every last person of the nation of Israel. He stood above them. His height exceeded everyone's height. So we got some tall niggas if you think about the NBA. Shaq himself is 7'1", 2". Okay? Shaq's an Israelite, right? So if Shaq's getting a crown, Christ is standing taller than Shaq. Quite some bit, too. Maybe about 3 or 4 or 5 feet. All right? So they're going to catch your attention. But even though still Abraham knew without that, because remember, this is back then. We're talking about close to 4,000 years ago. Maybe a little greater. So back then, the stature of men, as generation and generation goes by, we become weaker and more brittle and more frail. No matter how strong many of you think you are, you're nothing compared to those who were back in 4,000 years ago. It's just no comparison. They were far greater. Their entire stature, their bone stature, was much more stilt. Okay? So, but without that being, Abraham still knew who Christ was. He just knew who he was because he recognized him. Now, I'm going to read you all a story. And this story is going to verify and confirm the first time that Abraham met Christ. It's not a very lengthy story. I'm going to try to just read it and not make this too complicated for you all, right? I don't want to keep going back and saying stuff and things like that. The story is pretty straightforward, but now listen very carefully. I'm going to read this story, And I need you to open your ears. If you have anybody, any distractions around you, if you have anybody talking to you, I need you to ignore them. Go sit yourself into a room. Get yourself a glass of wine if you drink. Okay? If you smoke weed, smoke a Dutch. Smoke a, what they got now, what y'all do now, backwood or whatever. Okay, and many of you need to stop smoking after other people too. Okay, you should stop smoking after women, but you definitely should stop smoking after a lot of these niggas. Because a lot of these niggas ain't right. A lot of them are under the rug. And you shouldn't be taking a blunt if you're going to smoke. If you're going to smoke your weed, smoke it to yourself. Take your shit to the head. Excuse my language. Take your SHIT to the head if that's what you're going to do. Don't smoke after nobody. Okay? Now, because this is a really good story. Now, if you're somebody in religion, the first thing you're going to say is, we're far, look, I'm not that stupid. That's the first thing you're going to say. Okay? Let me take some notes here. Okay? I need to take some notes. All right. Now, pay attention. Let me go to the story. Okay? Hold up. Yeah, this city is certainly a crazy city. But anyway. Okay, now. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. I'm about to cut that other phone off because I'm not answering it. Now, pay attention. This is the apocalypse of Abraham. The apocalypse of Abraham. Now, we already know, based on the book of Genesis, that wasn't the first time Abraham saw Christ. Wasn't the first time. He's seen him before. So prior to the book of Genesis, Abraham already knew who Christ was. Now, this is a lost scroll. Now, to those of you who are skilled or at a novice level, but aware, and have been following my ministry, I want you all to know that this is not of the original Canaan. In other words, it's not of the original 66. So I don't like to use the word original because there are many, just because it's inside the Bible doesn't mean that those are the only books or the first books to say. That there are other originals that's been taken out of the scriptures. The scriptures is not in its entirety. The Bible is not in its entirety. The Apocrypha lies between the Old and New Testament. So, but there are lost scrolls that if you use the Spirit of Christ, when you read them, you can see that they correspond heavily with the scriptures. Now, this is a lost scroll, and it's called the Apocalypse of Abraham. Okay? And I want you all to pay very close attention. Now, if you're of the circumcision and you have the Spirit at all, if you don't have the Spirit, try using your common sense. Okay? Pay attention. Okay? The Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 1. The Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 1. I'm going to read the story, and I want you to press pause, because the story is going to need your full divided attention, or your undivided attention. Okay? I'm telling you. Go into a room, close your doors, and listen. Okay? I'm not that exciting of a person where you'd want to come back to this. So you need to get it while you're interested, or you're somewhat interested. You're not going to want to come back and listen to me again. I promise you that, right? Now listen. The Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 1. On the day, this is Abraham talking. On the day I was guarding the gods of my father Terah. So this is the day that he was guarding. It probably was the Sabbath, right? But we're not going to get into that. On the day, Abraham's explaining to everybody that he was looking after the gods of his father, Terah, and the gods of my brother, Namor, while I was testing to find out which God is in truth the strongest. Now, red flag already. Abraham just said that he was looking after. In other words, he was making sure that nobody stole them. He was probably keeping them clean. These are allegedly gods, like what they do with the rock in Mecca. They keep it clean. They make sure it's guarded so no one can go in there and break it, right? And then what do they all do? They go in there and they bow to it. Now, are you bowing to the rock or are you bowing to Allah? Now, when you go into a church on Sunday, you see the white Jesus, and if you're a really bold church, you might have a black Jesus. You call him Jesus. You call him out of his name, and he's got a cross in back of him. You keep him clean. You make sure he doesn't fall. Even the crosses without so-called Jesus, just a big cross. It's polished. In many cases, it's made out of wood or brass. You polish it. You make sure it's kept clean. Make sure it doesn't fall and break. Make sure someone doesn't enter the church and steal it, because it's probably worth a couple dollars. The Buddha statue. That Chinaman goes in and out of those temples, and they make those Buddha statues as shiny than a mug. They look gold. They're made out of brass, but they look gold. They're so shiny. People guard these statues. They make sure that no one comes into these statues and steals these statues, runs off with these statues. What about that big Jesus, that white Jesus? This got his arms out. Like, where is that at anyways? That's somewhere here in America, or is that overseas? Big old tall Jesus. Y'all know what I'm talking about. A lot of people like to take pictures in front of him or whatever. What about the monuments and all of these things? The tall erected monuments and just all the statues in general. Statues of so-called great men. Even the Rocky statue in Center City. People like to stand in front of the Rocky statue and get pictures taken care of. Click, click, click. Oh, looky, Rocky statue. When you all go to a concert and the person is on the stage performing, all of you are down there, roo-rah, roo-rah, woo-rah, roo-rah, hailing and praising the person that's on the stage. What about all of these people that consider themselves leaders, this, and leaders, that, and head of congregations, this, and community leaders, that, and head of this ministry, and head of bishop this, and minister that, and so-called so forth. And these people are just praised and put up on a high pedestal. Now, honor people to an extent, but these men are put up on such high plateaus, high pedestals. Everything they say, you do. Have I become your enemy because I've told you the truth? So he was watching these gods, and Abraham is pondering. He wants to know which of these gods are the strongest, because he's perplexed in his mind. This is his father. This is his father. This is his father. The name of this message is called Our Parents. This was Abraham's father. Remember a very important commandment. Honor thy mother and thy father. And this causes a great confusion. So, y'all want to know how we got to where we are today. Verse 2. This is the Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 1, verse 2. And it says, I then, Abraham, at the time when my lot came, when I was completing the services of my father Terah, sacrifice to his gods, of wood and stone and gold and of silver and of copper and of iron, of wood and stone and of gold and of silver, of copper and iron, having entered their temple for the service. I found a god named Merumath, carved from stone, fallen at the feet of the iron god. So this god Merumath, who was carved of stone, had tilted over, and it had fallen at the foot of the iron god that he had on there also, which was named Nakim. And it came to pass that when I saw it, my heart was perplexed, and I thought in my mind that I, Abraham, could not put it back in its place alone. So this god was too heavy for Abraham to pick up. The god couldn't get up and put itself back in its place. It was Abraham had to pick up the god and put it back in its place. But he wasn't strong enough to do it because it was too heavy. Being made of a big stone, but I went and told my father, and he came in with me, and when we both lifted it to put it in its place, its head fell off. So when his father came in to help him, they lifted it up, and the head fell off. Probably it was weak from the fall. And the head fell off, even while I was holding it by its head. And it came to pass when my father saw that the head of his god, Merumath, had fallen, he said to me, Abraham, and I honor thy mother and father. And I said, Here I am, Father. And he said to me, Bring me the axes and the chisels, from the house, and I brought them to him. From the house, and he cut another Merumath from another stone, without a head, and he smashed the head that had fallen off Merumath, and the rest of Merumath. He made 5 other gods, 5 other gods, and he gave them to me, and ordered me to sell them. He commanded his son to sell them. This is chapter 2. Chapter 2, verse 1. Now I'm going into verse 2. Outside on the town, he told Abraham to go and sell the gods outside on the town. I saddled up my father's ass and loaded the donkey and loaded them on it, and went out on the highway to sell them. And behold, merchants from Fandana and Syria, these were people of other nations, were coming with camels on their way to Egypt to buy concanil from the Nile. And I asked them a question, and they answered me. And I walked along, I conversed with them. One of their camels screamed. The ass took fright and ran away, and threw off the guides. So Abraham had these guides strapped to his ass. The camel screamed. One of the Syrians' camels, it screamed, and it scared Abraham's donkey. So Abraham's donkey said, "Woo!" ran off, and as he ran off, the recoil, okay, yanked it. The guides fell off of the camel, all 5 of them. 3 of them broke. 2 were preserved. Okay? 2 of them were preserved intact. And it came to pass that when the Syrians saw that I had guides, they said to me, "Why did you not tell us that you had guides?" Now, wait. We would have bought them. Why didn't you tell us we have guides? We would have bought them. Now, I want you all to hold a minute there, because I know what many of you were saying. Yo, dog, we're not that stupid, dog. Nobody's going to worship a statue, dog. Nobody's going to do that, dog. See, that's the problem. You niggas today, you think you're so smart. Yet you are the ancestors. You are the descendants of your ancestors. We don't worship statues, dog. We worship Jesus. We worship Jesus Christ. I don't care. Look, man, we can call him. We don't have to call him by his name, dog. If that's his name, dog. Nobody speaks Hebrew, man. We don't know if that's his real name, man. Jesus, man. That's in the Bible, man. His name is Jesus, man. Jesus means earth pig. Hey, man, listen, man. Allah means God, man. It means God. I got a lesson for you all too. I'm going to bring that one up. That's not what this lesson is about right now. Okay. Many of you don't even believe in any God at all. You look in the mirror and you say, "I am God." Don't you understand? You're not hurting me. Many of you look at your wife as God. Many of you look at your daughter or your son as God. Some of you worship your children. You don't even know that. Some of you are worshipers of money. Some of you worship the government. You worship Caesar. A lot of black women, they worship Caesar. They don't even have any respect for their husbands anymore in the house. They say, "Well, if you want to leave, leave. I'll get food stamps. I'll get WIC. And the government is giving out money now. I don't need you."